Ringy presents.
Also the sales industry. Stay ahead of the game. Latest news, latest trends. Nothing ever stays the same. Market shifting every day. Gotta know what's coming your way. Stay informed, stay on top. We bring you every drop.
Pulse of the sales industry by Ringy. Let's get into it.
Are you completely exhausted by, the endless barrage of scam calls?
Oh, it's just nonstop these days.
Right. Or like trying to navigate this bizarre maze of offshore customer service reps just to pay a simple medical bill.
Yeah, that is incredibly frustrating.
If you really think about it, there used to be a time when a ringing phone was just a ringing phone.
Right, like maybe it was your mom.
Yeah, or maybe the dentist reminding you about an appointment. It was just a tool.
Exactly.
But today, your phone has basically become a battlefield. You stare at that screen when it rings, and your default assumption is just, this is a trap.
It really is a complete inversion of trust.
Yeah.
The device designed to connect us to the world is now the exact device we are frantically trying to wall ourselves off from.
Completely.
The burden of proof is totally shifted.
Yeah.
It used to be that you answered the phone unless you had a reason not to.
Right.
Now, you ignore the phone unless the caller can absolutely prove they are safe.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're looking at why your phone has become a battlefield and how the rules of communication are being completely rewritten from the ground up.
It's a huge shift.
To figure out how we got here and where we are going, we're synthesizing some fascinating insights across the whole spectrum of communication.
We really are.
We've got the 2026 TNS robocall investigation report. We're looking at the regulatory hammer the FCC is bringing down based on their March 2026 open meeting notes via TCPA World. And we're exploring how local businesses are adapting with the 2026 AS and OA marketing trends guide.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. The mission of this deep dive is basically to understand how the explosion of AI and robocalls is forcing government regulators and legitimate businesses to completely change how they interact with you.
Because in 2026, trust is the ultimate currency.
Exactly. But before we can understand how legitimate businesses are trying to reach you today, we first have to examine why you've stopped answering your phone in the first place.
Right. And to understand that, we have to look at the actual physical and digital plumbing of the telecom infrastructure itself.
Okay, the plumbing.
Yeah, we often think of the phone network as one massive unified system, right? You dial a number, it rings on the other side, end of story.
That's how it feels to us, yeah.
But it is actually a highly fragmented patchwork of different carriers, and they're running on wildly different generations of technology.
Ah.
And according to that 2026 TNS robocall investigation report, that patchwork has created a massive, glaring divide.
A divide that scammers are just driving a truck right through.
Pretty much.
When you look at the data, the big players, so the tier one carriers like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they are actually winning the authentication war.
They really are.
They use this protocol called stir-shaken,
Yes.
which, for anyone who isn't a telecom engineer, stir-shaken is basically like a digital wax seal for your phone call.
That's a great way to put it.
And 85% of the traffic on these major networks is signed with this digital seal. And a massive 93% gets the highest A-level attestation.
Right.
That basically means the network is highly confident the caller is exactly who their caller ID says they are.
But the TNS investigation highlights a devastating vulnerability in the rest of the network.
Yeah, the smaller guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The smaller and rural carriers are lagging terribly. According to the data, only 17.5% of their call traffic is successfully signed.
Wait, 17.5%?
Yeah.
That is not a gap. That is a canyon.
That is huge.
Why are they struggling so much to implement this?
Well, it comes down to the fundamental architecture of their networks and just the sheer cost of modernizing.
Okay.
A lot of these smaller regional carriers are still operating on legacy TDM networks. That stands for time division multiplexing.
Got it.
This is older, analog-era, switched circuit architecture. It involves physical switches and copper lines.
Old school stuff.
Right. But stir-shaken is a digital protocol. It requires attaching a digital certificate to the data packets of a phone call.
Oh, I see.
And you cannot easily attach a digital certificate to an analog circuit.
That makes sense.
To fully implement stir-shaken, a carrier really needs to be operating an IP or Internet Protocol network.
Which means they basically have to rip out the old plumbing and install brand new pipes.
Precisely. And for a small rural carrier with a limited subscriber base, migrating from TDM to IP is an incredibly expensive, resource-heavy lift.
Yeah, I bet.
They often lack the massive capital budgets and the specialized IT staff to just do it quickly.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. So Stir Shaken was supposed to be the bouncer at the club, checking IDs at the door to keep the riffraff out.
Yes.
But the scammers aren't fighting the bouncer at the main entrance. They just bought VIP wristbands from the smaller, less secure side doors.
What's fascinating here is the concept of attestation and how bad actors manipulate it.
How so?
It's not just that scammers are making millions of illegal phone calls. It's that they are successfully tricking the framework into labeling their fake calls as verified and trusted.
And the methods they use to do this are incredibly sophisticated.
They really are.
The report details the use of SIM farms and SIM boxes.
Right.
This isn't just, someone sitting in a basement dialing a rotary phone.
Not at all.
These are bad actors taking vast arrays of hardware, stuffing them with hundreds of cheap, local prepaid SIM cards, and hooking them up to the internet.
Yeah.
They generate massive volumes of spam calls overseas using cheap voice over IP, but then they route those calls through the internet directly into that physical SIM box sitting in a U.S. city.
And that right there is the crucial mechanism of the deception.
The local connection.
Exactly. When the call leaves that physical SIM box, it hits the local cell tower using a local SIM card.
Oh, wow.
So the network security protocols look at it and say, oh, well, this is just a local cell phone making a call. It completely disguises the international origin.
So it basically bridges the gap between the dark web and your local cell tower.
Yes, exactly.
Because they are originating inside the networks through these local SIM cards, they bypass the bouncer entirely.
They do.
And the investigation found that up to 15% of all spam-tagged calls are directly linked to these SIM farms.
Which is a massive chunk of traffic.
And even more shocking, up to 13% of call traffic using totally invalid unassigned numbers is still somehow getting that golden A-level trusted attestation.
Yeah.
The system is literally actively vouching for ghosts.
It is. And these network exploits are becoming terrifyingly targeted.
That's the scariest part.
Scammers are now utilizing multimodal AI attacks. They're combining these local network loopholes with highly specific timing.
Right, like the hospital example.
Yes. The TNS report highlights a chilling example involving the Kettering Health ransomware attack.
Oh, that was awful.
When that healthcare system suffered a massive IT outage, everything was thrown into chaos. Patients were confused, billing systems were totally down.
And the scammers just saw that chaos as a massive opportunity.
They immediately pounced. They launched a highly coordinated attack using robocalls and automated robotexts aimed directly at the local patient population.
Unbelievable.
And because of the SIM farms, the caller ID looked local and trusted.
Wow.
The AI voices, or automated messages, claimed to be the hospital's billing department. They stated that due to the IT outage, patients needed to manually provide their credit card information over the phone to prevent a lapse in their healthcare coverage.
That is just ruthless.
Totally ruthless.
I mean, they weaponize the news cycle. And because the call is carrying that trusted A-level attestation on the caller ID, a panicked patient dealing with a medical crisis is incredibly likely to fall for it.
Absolutely.
This perfectly encapsulates why you, the consumer, have walled yourself off. The technological bouncers at the door simply aren't enough to protect you right now.
Which forces a larger systemic reaction. Because the technological infrastructure is failing to fully solve the problem, government regulators are stepping in to aggressively change the rules of engagement.
And we see this playing out vividly in the notes from the FCC's March 2026 open meeting.
Yes, covered by TCPO World.
Exactly. You read through these notes and you see a regulatory body that is clearly just fed up with the whack-a-mole game.
They really are.
They passed two major unanimous proposals that are going to significantly alter how call centers and phone number providers operate.
Huge changes.
Let's dive into Proposal 1 first, because this is going to directly impact you the next time you call customer service.
Okay, so Proposal 1 is a severe crackdown on offshore call centers.
Yeah.
The explicit goals here are to bring jobs back to the U.S., drastically improve the consumer experience, and cut off the overseas pipelines that facilitate so many of these scams.
Okay.
One of the most fascinating components is the new language standard. The FCC is no longer accepting basic, textbook English comprehension from offshore representatives.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they are mandating actual fluency in American English vocabulary and, crucially, idioms.
That idiom requirement is such a specific, telling detail.
It is, isn't it?
It addresses that exact moment of friction we've all experienced. Like, if I call my bank and say, my internet is on the fritz and I think I'm overdrawn, the representative needs to understand that cultural context immediately.
Exactly.
Scammers often give themselves away with slightly unnatural phrasing, the classic kindly do the needful emails.
Right.
By mandating idiom fluency, the FCC is trying to ensure that when you speak to a legitimate representative, you don't feel that creeping suspicion that you might be talking to a scammer or, like, a bad AI.
Beyond the language requirements, they're proposing a strict volume cap.
A volume cap?
Yes, a communications provider will be limited to routing a maximum of 30% of their customer service calls overseas.
Wow, 30%.
The remaining 70% must be handled domestically.
That is a big deal.
Furthermore, they are instituting a transparency mandate.
What does that look like?
If your call is being handled by an offshore representative, the provider must explicitly disclose that fact to you up front.
Okay.
And they must grant you the absolute right to request an immediate transfer to a U.S.-based representative.
So, if you are trying to dispute a complex medical bill and you feel like you're just reading off a script with someone thousands of miles away,
Right.
you now have the regulatory right to demand a stateside representative.
Yes.
That is a massive shift in consumer power. And the data security aspect of this proposal is equally huge.
Oh, definitely.
Any sensitive payment data or account access information must stay physically within the United States.
That is a direct countermeasure to the data vulnerabilities exploited in attacks like the Kettering Health incident.
Right.
You cannot process a credit card offshore under these proposed rules, which drastically reduces the surface area for international data theft.
Makes total sense.
Then the FCC turns its attention to the structural supply lines with Proposal 2, which targets the phone numbers themselves.
Because scammers need phone numbers the way an engine needs gasoline.
Exactly.
They buy these massive batches of numbers from wholesale resellers. They use them to blast out spam for a day or two, and then they burn them before they can get flagged by the carrier's analytics.
Yep.
Then they just buy a new batch and start over.
Yeah. The FCC wants to end that structural shell game.
How?
Currently, a single block of phone numbers might be sold and resold through 5 or 6 different layers of middlemen.
Ugh, a nightmare to trace.
Exactly. If a spam call is traced back, investigators hit a wall of shell companies, making it nearly impossible to find the actual bad actor making the call.
Right.
So the FCC is proposing to limit the resale of phone numbers to a single level.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, but also, I think, a bit messy.
Okay, how so?
I have to push back a little on the reality of how this actually plays out on the ground. We just talked about criminal syndicates running illegal SIM farms in basements. Are those guys really going to care about a 30% cap on offshore calls or limiting their number resale to a single level?
Wow.
Doesn't this heavy-handed regulation just make legitimate rule-following call centers vastly more expensive to operate, while the actual criminals just continue to ignore the law completely?
That tension is the core dilemma of any regulatory framework. Right. Laws only bind the law-abiding.
Exactly.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the goal here is ecosystem accountability.
And ecosystem accountability.
The
Right.
regulators know they can't legislate morality into a scammer. What they can do is shrink the dark corners of the infrastructure where those scammers operate.
So how does limiting a legitimate reseller shrink a scammer's dark corner?
By enforcing single-level resale, you force immediate transparency on the supply chain. If a number is used for a scam, the carrier knows exactly who bought it.
No more shell companies.
Right. Simultaneously, the FCC is forcing those smaller rural carriers we talked about earlier to modernize.
Okay.
And there are new technological solutions to help them do that. Services like TNS-hosted Cloud Connect act as a managed bridge.
A bridge.
Yeah, allowing those legacy TDM networks to interact securely with modern IP networks without having to spend millions laying new fiber.
Oh, that's clever.
By patching those technological holes and forcing administrative transparency, you eliminate the structural loopholes the criminals rely on.
I see.
If the entire legitimate network is tightly authenticated An unauthenticated, spoofed call from a SIM farm sticks out immediately.
Right. It's the only one without a VIP wristband.
Exactly. The analytics engines can spot it and block it before your phone ever rings. The regulations aren't asking the scammer to behave. They are forcing the infrastructure to become hostile to the scammer.
That makes total sense. You aren't negotiating with the criminal. You are just building a wall they can't climb over.
Precisely.
But this brings us to the most practical, boots on the ground part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've established that the phone lines are polluted with AI imposters. You, the consumer, are hiding behind call blockers, and the government is ripping up the old rules.
Yes.
So, if you are a legitimate local business today, let's use an independent insurance agent as our example, drawing from the 2026 ASNOA Marketing Trends Guide.
Great example.
How on earth do you actually reach a potential client without looking like a scammer?
Well, you have to fundamentally tear down your old marketing playbook.
Just throw it out.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The ASNOA guide makes one thing abundantly clear. Trust is the primary currency.
Trust.
They cite a recent Salesforce report noting that 61% of customers say advancements in AI make it significantly more important for companies to be trustworthy.
It's 61%.
Consumers are hypervigilant and highly skeptical.
Which means the old school generic get a quote sales funnel is completely dead.
Oh, totally dead.
I mean, if I go to a local business website and the very first thing they do is ask for my phone number and email to generate a quote, I'm immediately bouncing off that page. I don't trust them yet, and I know if I hand over my phone number, my device is going to blow up with automated texts and calls.
That consumer friction is exactly why businesses are pivoting entirely to value-first lead magnets.
Value-first lead magnets.
Yes. Instead of asking for a transaction up front, even just a data transaction like a phone number, they're offering highly specific, purely educational resources to prove their competence first.
And the examples in the ASNOA guide are brilliant in their specificity.
You really are.
They aren't offering generic brochures. They're creating resources like a What Most Policies Don't Cover guide.
Or a cyber risk self-audit for small businesses.
Right. Or a detailed Turning 65 checklist for Medicare navigation.
Exactly.
They are identifying a complex problem the consumer is facing and solving a piece of it for free before any sales pitch ever happens.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
So instead of standing on the corner shouting through a megaphone to buy insurance, these agents are basically handing out free umbrellas in the rain.
Yes.
They're proving their utility and their humanity first.
That is a perfect visualization of the shift. And the medium they are using to deliver these umbrellas has shifted dramatically as well.
Really?
Yeah. The guide points out a massive migration toward educational, short-form video on platforms like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels.
Which is fascinating because just a few years ago, professional business felt they needed a highly polished, studio-quality commercial to look legitimate.
Right, the high production value.
But now, the ASNOA guide explicitly advises that authentic, unpolished video perform significantly better.
It does.
Like an insurance agent just holding their smartphone, looking directly into the camera, and explaining what a specific coverage trade-off means in plain conversational English.
Because high polish can actually feel deceptive in a low-trust environment.
Oh, that's interesting.
Authenticity, even if it's a little rough around the edges, builds a parasocial relationship.
Right.
The consumer feels like they know the agent's face, their voice, and their expertise before they ever consider picking up the phone.
Makes a lot of sense.
Furthermore, consumers now expect a seamless, omni-channel experience.
Omni-channel, meaning what exactly?
You might watch an agent's TikTok on Tuesday, check their Google business profile reviews on Wednesday, read an educational email on Thursday, and finally text them on Friday.
Okay, yeah.
The tone, the branding, and the helpfulness must be perfectly consistent across all those channels, or you immediately break that fragile trust.
But, I mean, producing short-form video, writing cyber risk audits, managing a multi-channel presence, that takes an incredible amount of time.
A massive amount of time.
A local insurance agent can't suddenly become a full-time media production company.
No, they can't.
Which leads us to the ultimate irony of 2026.
What's that?
The exact same technology that is driving the terrifying impersonation scams and making consumers wall themselves off artificial intelligence is the exact tool legitimate businesses must embrace if they want to survive.
It really is the defining paradox of the current market landscape.
It's crazy.
The ASNO guide is unambiguous. AI marketing is no longer a futuristic luxury for local businesses. It is absolute standard operating procedure.
But the crucial distinction is how they use it.
Exactly.
Legitimate businesses aren't using AI to fake being human. They are using it to handle the immense operational weight of this new marketing landscape.
Right.
We're talking about deploying 247 intelligent chatbots that can answer basic, specific coverage questions at 2 a.m.
Yep.
We're talking about automated text and email triggers that respond dynamically based on how a consumer interacts with a website.
And most importantly, predictive analytics to figure out which leads actually want to be contacted.
Right.
And this allows for hyper-personalization, but crucially, it is driven by first-party data.
First-party data, so not bought from a broker.
Exactly. This means data the consumer willingly and knowingly gave the agent, not data scraped and bought from a shady third-party data broker. If an agent system knows you just bought a new house, the AI helps segment your profile, so you only receive highly relevant information about homeowners insurance or flood risks.
Rather than getting spammed with generic auto insurance quotes you don't even need.
Right. This raises an important question, or rather, it highlights a fascinating contrast in how we coexist with this technology.
Yeah.
Scammers are utilizing AI to fake humanity. They are cloning voices and mimicking distressed relatives to steal from you.
So creepy.
But legitimate surviving businesses are using AI to handle the robotic, repetitive, administrative tasks, specifically so the actual human agent has more time for face-to-face genuine connection.
By automating the back-end busy work, the local professional is actually experiencing a renaissance.
They are.
They suddenly have the bandwidth to go back to grassroots, community-based marketing.
Right, getting out there.
They can host in-person educational workshops at the local library. They can build referral partnerships with local realtors or financial advisors over coffee. They can sponsor a little league team and actually have the free time to show up to the games.
Yeah.
AI is freeing them up to do the one thing AI fundamentally cannot do: be a visible, accountable, trusted member of a physical community.
Which is invaluable.
So what does this all mean? When we look at all these sources together, it seems to me that technology is completely polarizing our interactions.
What do you mean?
On one end of the spectrum, the worst interactions we have are fully automated, completely deceitful, and weaponized against us. You know, the sim farms bridging the dark web to our cell towers, and the AI voice clones preying on our panic.
Like the bad stuff.
But on the absolute other end of the spectrum, the best interactions are utilizing automation silently in the background, carving out the space and time for real, calm, confident human guidance.
It's a purification of the market.
A purification, wow.
Yeah, the lazy middle ground, the generic, pushy telemarketing of the past, the massive spray and pray robocall campaigns is being squeezed out of existence by heavy regulations and total consumer exhaustion. Moving forward, you either offer genuine, verifiable human value, or you are treated as a threat.
It really brings this whole deep dive full circle.
It does.
We started in the murky, unauthenticated waters of smaller telecom networks, exploring how sim farms manage to bypass the stir-shaken bouncers to manipulate our caller IDs.
Yo.
We looked at the FCC bringing down the hammer with heavy-handed new rules to force transparency on offshore call centers and eliminate the shell game of number resellers.
Right.
And finally, we explored how smart local businesses are adapting, not by yelling louder, but by using AI to offer hyper-specific education, humanize their brand through video, and build that vital currency of trust.
We are living through a massive transition period.
We really are.
The very plumbing of our communication networks is being rebuilt while the water is still flowing through the pipes.
And for you listening right now, this directly matters to your daily life because the very nature of how the world asks for your attention and your money is fundamentally shifting. Over the next year, you are going to see more clear, verified indicators on your phone of exactly who is calling, thanks to those forced network upgrades.
Right.
And you're going to notice that legitimate businesses will increasingly stop demanding your personal info up front.
Yes.
Instead, they will offer you free, hyper-personalized knowledge to earn the right to speak with you.
The power dynamic has completely shifted. The burden of proof now rests entirely on the caller to prove their worth.
It has. Which leaves me with one final kind of wild thought to mull over based on everything we've unpacked today.
Lay it on me.
We've seen how incredibly fast AI can adapt and how perfectly it is beginning to mimic human voices and even video.
Yeah, that's rapid.
If that trend continues to its logical extreme and digital trust eventually becomes mathematically impossible to verify,
Wow,
will we simply abandon digital communication for our most important life decisions?
that is a thought.
Are we heading toward a future where, for anything that truly matters, like buying a house, securing healthcare, planning our finances, we completely revert to in-person, sit-down, face-to-face handshake agreements?
It's entirely possible.
Just something to think about the next time your phone rings.
Also the sales industry. Stay ahead of the game. Latest news, latest trends. Nothing ever stays the same. Market shifting every day. Gotta know what's coming your way. Stay informed, stay on top. We bring you every drop.
Pulse of the Sales Industry by Ringy.